Hi, I'm Sophie Kirkham. I'm a hypnobirthing teacher and I run the Calm Hypnobirthing Company Limited. So I've decided to record a little session for you to explain and answer a little bit about what hypnobirthing is. I've asked some former hypnobirthers and midwife friends for questions and I'm going to answer those for you now. So the first question, and this is from Rennie Schwenke, she's one of the neighbourhood midwifery team. She says, I can't sleep, I'm so uncomfortable, help. Okay, so I can answer that one for you very readily. Listen to one of my hypnobirthing tracks. Put on the Mummy's Confidence Booster track. When you go to bed half an hour earlier, put the track on and have a listen, and I guarantee you will sink into sleep and you'll awaken in the morning feeling so much more relaxed and re-energized. You have to give it a listen every day for 2 weeks and then just listen to it 3 or 4 times a week for the rest of the pregnancy. So that was Rennie's question. The next question is from Mariana Corbett. Hi Mariana. Will hypnobirthing help me to avoid a medicated birth? And she says, this was the reason I signed up for it. And yeah, sure did. Mariana's experience of hypnobirthing was amazing. She really did have to make some decisions about her caregivers when she was pregnant, who was going to be looking after her, who was going to be her midwife, who were going to be her doctors, because she had some special circumstances, we call them in hypnobirthing, special circumstances that needed to be supported by people who were willing to support what Mariana wanted and her choices as a mother. So Mariana came and did a 4-week Calm Hypnobirthing course. I run them from my home in SE13 and I also will teach you privately in your own home, or I teach in Bexley Heath, in Blackheath, in Lee Green for group courses. So Mariana came with her husband because he's the birth companion, so he came along too, and we did our 4 sessions, and I think she was pretty convinced by the 3rd session that she could have the natural birth that she wanted. And she did it. And I'm very proud of you. Well done. Okay, this is question number 3 from Orla. Awesome, Orla. Thank you very much for this. What are the benefits of hypnobirthing over the standard hospital birth? Okay, all right. Hypnobirthing mums are more relaxed, they're calmer, and therefore their bodies work more efficiently and more effectively when they are birthing their babies. That's not to say that you can't do that if you aren't hypnobirthing, but there's a big fear, tension, pain cycle, and the environment within which you birth has to be akin to that of an environment where you can be deeply relaxed and feel very safe and comfortable. And so when you decide to have a labour ward birth, for example, you need to work hard to create the best space for you to birth your baby in. And that's not something that you can just leave up to chance on the day. You need to have spoken to your caregivers about hypnobirthing, and you need to have a birth companion who can really root for you and support you and cherish you and nurture you whilst you're being incredibly powerful and yet slightly vulnerable too. So the benefits of hypnobirthing, Orla. On a huge scale, above all else for me, it's the empowerment of the mother, that she understands that it's her body, her birth and her baby. The use of self-hypnosis reduces the need for analgesia, and that has positive knock-on effects that because you are more relaxed as mum, you require less pain relief, analgesia, and your baby doesn't receive any of those sort of analgesic drugs through the placenta and is born alert and ready for breastfeeding, etc. Other positives, I'm just looking at my notes, a possible reduction in the need for augmentation of labour as well, which is great. That's something that medical caregivers need to know and need to understand. that hypnosis is used for childbirth, and it can minimise the incidence of things like uterine hyperstimulation and the need for epidural analgesia. I think it gives people, I know it gives people skills for life in terms of learning how to be calm and peaceful with yourself, and making time in your day to listen to a relaxation audio track, which is part of looking after yourself and a life skill. And maybe if this is your first child, you come to hypnobirthing and you're operating at such a high level that you're quite stressed, and maybe you're even anxious, and then on your course, on your hypnobirthing course, you will learn how to manage your states, how to relax, and it's quite a clever program, really. Okay, question number 4 comes from Lynn, my dear friend Lynn. How will I know when it's time to go to the hospital? Nice question, Lynn, and often asked by the dads. Dads on courses want to know when do we transfer from home to birth centre, when, or if you're birthing at home, obviously having a home birth, when do we call the midwives? So when I was learning hypnobirthing, when I was pregnant with my son, our hypnobirthing teacher was a midwife as well, so I trusted her advice on this, and I stand by it, and that's what I share with my students. And we do the flower diagram, so those of you who've been on a course know all about that. And it's that you're having surges, that's your uterine muscular activity, those big contractions, we call them surges in hypnobirthing, that you're having 3 or 4 of those in 10 minutes, every 10 minutes for 2 hours. That shows that there is a constant rhythm of activity, that you are in what they call the active phase. You're birthing, your baby's coming, and therefore it's time to go. So after an hour of 3 in 10, as it's called, you know, surges that are lasting 45 seconds, every 10 minutes you have 3, and it keeps going like that. After you've had an hour of that, phone up the birth centre or labour ward and tell them that's what's happening, and then when you've had that pattern for 2 hours, then you get in the car and go. And it's really important that you've already done a recce, you've already done a reconnaissance trip, so you've already been, however you're going, if it's in a taxi, if it's a 5-minute walk away, if you're driving, however you're getting there, that you've already done that as a rehearsal at about 36 or 37 weeks of pregnancy, rather than waiting until you've actually gone into labour. And I'll tell you why I think that's very helpful. And I'll share an experience that I had, which was when I was preggers with Freddie. I had a little bit of a special circumstance when I was about 7 months pregnant, and I went to be checked out. And what I noticed was, as I sat in the waiting room at St Thomas's in London, St Thomas's Hospital, I was surrounded by women who were supposedly in labour, but there was no labour happening. These women had just come in, and they would spend the whole day there, and then they would go home. And I just thought, this isn't what my hypnobirthing teacher told me about. She told me that I need to conserve my energy for labour. And then I was inspired because a woman came in who was in labour, and she got down on all fours on the ground in front of me, and she roared through this surge. And she went into what they call the triage, where a midwife sort of took her straight through and assessed her, and off she went to have her baby. She'd had this big surge as she was on all fours on the ground, and she breathed through it, and then she got up and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry if I scared you." I said, "You didn't scare me. You inspired me." And I knew that's how I wanted to be when I was having Freddie. I wanted to arrive at hospital knowing that my child was going to be born soon, and spend most of my labour at home. And that's what I did, and I'm glad of it. So thank you, whoever you were, wonderful woman that day. All right, we're going to move on to question number 5, which is from Zara de Candolle, hypnobirthing teacher and doula. Wonders never cease. Zara, you're amazing. Thank you for this question, which is, What if my partner or I start to panic? Wow, that's a good one. On the course, I often talk about dad freeze, which is not meant to be a contemptuous title. We can go into a fear state, and that's born out of many different things. With your hypnobirthing practice and your practice journeys into the birth centre and meeting with your midwife to go through your birth preferences, etc., etc., you've prepared yourself pretty well. But what if you have a wobble? What if you think, oh no, what do? Use your techniques. Run a bath if you're still at home. Get in the warm water, listen to your tracks, listen to your hypnobirthing audio. Take yourself down into the zone and relax and enjoy it. Dads, my advice is very similar for you. You need to learn to manage your state. If you go into a fear state, that could rub off on mum. It's going to slow her labour down. So you too can practice listening to the audio. You as well can learn to breathe calmly, and you can learn to ground yourself. And it's always possible for you to just pop out of the birth space for 5 minutes to manage your state and get yourself calmed down. There are some really fundamentally important things that you need to remember, like conserving your energy, eating, staying hydrated, and managing the space and protecting the birthing mother and feeling useful. So you need to ask yourself that question, birth companion, stroke dad, how can I be useful? And for mum to be at her best and her most relaxed, how do I need to be? There's some questions right back at you. Okay, next question comes from Lisa Wrigley. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, this is Lisa Wrigley's question next. Thank you very much, Lisa. Lisa asks, what does a contraction feel like? She says, when someone explained the physiology to me, although no one can know until it's happening to them, I beg to differ. I'll give you my version of what it's like. She says, I then had an idea and then I understood, and my ability to relax was so important. After doing birthing yoga and all the breaths, etc., my question was, how on earth am I expected to remember this when my body's contracting? It's funny to look back now, she says. So, what does a contraction feel like? Well, have you ever had diarrhea? The kind of diarrhea where you're sitting on a loo and it's completely involuntary. You're not thinking, I'm going to go now. No, it's just happening. That surge of energy as your body powers down and empties is very similar to a surge feeling. The surges of your womb are very powerful. The muscles of your womb, of your uterus, are the strongest muscles in a man or woman at term, and they got some oomph and they will get your baby out. There's no about it actually. The surge works with the wave of hormone that's been released, so it will build to a peak and then it will ebb off and you'll have a little lull, and it'll build to a peak and you'll have a little lull, and it's completely involuntary. And what hypnobirthing gives you is the skills to ride those waves so that you look forward to them. I can remember being in labour with my son in pretty much where I am now, only facing onto the sofa, and Freddie's dad saying, we need to go to the hospital now because if we don't go now we're going to have him in the car, and me saying, no, 5 more. I want 5 more. I'm going to do 5 more surges. I can't imagine wanting 5 more contractions, 5 more surges had I not done hypnobirthing. I was so filled with enthusiasm. I was so excited to meet my baby. I had no fear. It was the best feeling. I looked forward to surges. You don't hear many women saying that. The only women you hear saying, I want to give birth again, I really enjoyed that, are hypnobirthing mums. Okay, I hope that answers that sensation question for a lot of you. Next question is from Holly. Holly says, amongst some nice compliments, she says, Will I be aware of what is going on during the birth? Can I still have an active labour if I'm using self-hypnosis? And can hypnobirthing help me if I'm high risk or having a caesarean section? How will hypnobirthing help my partner? Brilliant questions, and probably the sorts of questions that women who found out they're pregnant and are looking into hypnobirthing want to know the answers to. So thank you, Holly. Will you be aware of what's going on during the birth? Yes. I get loads of birth reports back from mothers, regardless of how they birthed their babies, where they birthed them. Maybe there was some challenging moment where they needed some help, and they say, I was the calmest person in the room. Everyone around me? No, but I was the calmest person there. What the hypnosis has done is, which you practice every day, what that relaxation practice has done is it's instilled that confidence and trust in you, and so that you can be aware, and you're so aware of what's happening. Some women can still feel their babies wriggling around and moving around inside them during birthing, and that's not something that I can imagine you feeling if you are frightened and your body is tense and your womb is aching like hell because it hasn't got enough blood supply going to it because you're in a fear state. When you're in self-hypnosis, you're fully aware of everything that's going on around you. You just choose to kind of take a step back and ignore it. You learn to take sounds and distractions as cues to deepen your relaxation rather than for it to disturb you. She says, can I still have an active labour if I'm using self-hypnosis? Okay, so what's active labour? Active labour is not lying on your back. So when you're giving birth, women instinctively will move around, they'll squat, they might kneel, they might get on all fours, they may lay on their side, but they certainly don't lay on their backs to give birth. That's straight out of the book of bad ideas, and even if you don't do a hypnobirthing course, I would really encourage you to stay off your back. You can sit on a gym ball, a birthing ball, a Swiss ball. They're all the same, by the way. There's no difference between a gym ball and a pregnancy ball. Just buy a decent middle of the range one with a hand pump. I'm just trying to cram in as much information as I can. Active labour means being able to move around freely. One of the things that might restrict that is if you're having continuous fetal monitoring. And according to the World Health Organization, there's no evidence base that continuous fetal monitoring has a benefit on the outcome of pregnancy. So if you were on a labour ward and they wanted to listen to the fetal heart rate permanently, as in you're stuck on a bed with belts on, what you need to know is the evidence is that that doesn't have an influence on the outcome of that birth. Your midwife listening intermittently every 15 or 20 minutes is equally as useful. And a relaxed mum equals a relaxed womb, equals a relaxed cervix, equals a relaxed baby. Can hypnobirthing help me if I'm high risk or having an elective caesarean section? Yes. In a word, hypnobirthing can help you if you're high risk, because what I challenge a lot of my clients to do is to work at looking where the true boundaries lie for the birth of their child and what their professional medical caregivers can do to support them in those wishes and those preferences. I think a lot of people come to hypnobirthing, and I love it in the first session where people talk about, I'm not allowed, they won't let me. And we start talking about who does the allowing and whose decision and whose body it is and who's giving birth to this baby anyway. Ultimately, it's the mother's decision what happens. And sometimes women want to give birth on labour wards, and they might want to use a pool, but it might be that they can't, or they're not allowed, and it's about pushing those boundaries and finding out what the true evidence base is for those decisions, and not just taking a no, you can't, rather than pursuing what is possible. Next, a thought that occurs to me, Holly, is if you are high risk, or maybe your baby is, and you're having an elective caesarean section, that you can still manage the space that your baby emerges into as you would have done if you were hypnobirthing. And so I encourage people to look at things like meeting the surgery team prior and talking about their wishes, talking about having delayed cord clamping, which is something we've known about since the 1960s. Premature babies who are born and have delayed cord clamping via emergency caesarean section and have their full fetal blood transfusion, the baby has all the blood in them before their cord is cut at caesarean section, will thrive much better than those who had immediate cord clamping. So that's a nice little factoid. So we knew that in the 60s, and it's 2014 and they're still doing it. So there's quite a lot of empowerment for you and your birth companion. So your birth companion is effectively your protector, and she is there to enforce and protect those boundaries. It is possible to still have a gentle emergence for your child into the world when they are born through caesarean section operation rather than vaginally. And a little bit more on how will hypnobirthing help my partner. Hypnobirthing will help your partner because they will have good understanding of what birth is like. Hypnobirthing teaches you the physiology of what's happening. We don't go into huge detail. We're not training to be midwives, but we learn the fundamentals. We're learning about the process, and we're learning what benefits and supports the natural process of birth, and we'll dabble in what can hamper it, and what can be an obstruction, and what can create or cause delay, etc. And to have a birth companion who's completely engaged with your hypnobirthing practice and who you feel you can rely upon is amazing. And I always say this, that if it is the dad, your birth companion, if it's the baby's dad, it's his opportunity to demonstrate his love for you and your baby, and earn a lot of brownie points that last for a very, very long time. That's their role on the day. And I think it's important that you and your birth companion have a conversation prior to the birth about whether or not he really wants to be there, or whether or not you want him to be there. Because to have somebody with you who's not quite up to supporting you, or is going to get all scared, that's no use. You need somebody who can be with you, supporting you, nurturing you, loving you, and so that you feel utterly safe and can go deeper and deeper into relaxation as your baby travels deeper and deeper down the birth path. So again, I'm Sophie Kirkham. I run the Calm Hypnobirthing Company Limited, and I have developed a range of audio tracks that you can buy as CD packages or audio downloads. And I've used all of my experience over my years of teaching hypnobirthing and the wonderful clients who I've learned so much from through teaching them hypnobirthing. I've used that experience to develop this audio, and I'd like you to be able to use that to support you in your pregnancy, your baby's birth, and in early parenthood as well. So you can contact me at info@calmhypnobirthing.com for email, and the website has all of the contact information that you need, including the shop where you can go and buy the audio. And I wish you calm, confidence and relaxation for the birth of your baby and beyond. Thanks for watching, and please feel free to share this on.